Hi, I am Tanya, a growth marketer at Meritto. I welcome you all to this edition of Education Circuit by Meritto, where we host experts, thought leaders, and decision makers from across the global education ecosystem. In this series, we dive deep into the latest insights, emerging trends, and proven best practices that are shaping the future of education. Over the past sessions, we have had the privilege of hosting incredible voices from institutions like Clark Atlanta University, Boston University, De Montfort University, Abu Dhabi University, American University in the Emirates, Asia Pacific University, Old Dominion University, and many more. Today promises to be just as insightful. And for those who don't know, Meritto is the global standard in enrollment technology for colleges and universities. We believe the admissions team shouldn't have to navigate complex systems or struggle with outdated tools in an AI driven world where speed and precision are essential. That's why Meritto stands out with a purpose built solutions designed for admissions professionals, not tech experts. With its intuitive interface, robust data architecture, and AI driven automation, Meritto empowers institutions to recruit smarter, engage students more effectively, and streamline the entire admissions journey. And today we are honored to be joined by one of the most respected voices in US higher ed education marketing and public relations, Dr. Joseph Brennan, Vice President for University Communications and Marketing at Montclair State University. With more than 30 years of experience leading communications at major public research universities, Dr. Brennan is widely recognized as one of the nation's foremost experts in higher education marketing and public relations. A trusted advisor to over a dozen university presidents, he has shaped transformational strategies, managed high stakes crises, and elevated institutions' reputation and impact. A published scholar, public speaker, and a member of prestigious PRSA College of Fellows, Dr. Brennan brings unmatched depth and perspective to the evolving landscape of university communications. It's a privilege to have him with us today. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you, Tanya. I'm really glad to be here.
And joining us with a truly global perspective is Shabazz Siddiqui, Director of International Business at Meritto. With over a decade of experience in education technology, Shabazz has worked with more than 1,200 institutes across the UAE, Malaysia, and US, helping them drive meaningful enrollment growth through technology that's built for execution, not complexity. He's played a key role in making Meritto the go-to platform for institutions aiming to simplify their processes and scale faster. And today, he's here to help us connect strategy to implementation. Hi, Shabazz.
Hi, Tanya. Thank you so much for inviting me. Good morning, everyone.
I couldn't be more excited to dive into a power-packed discussion around a topic that's become a strategic imperative for every US institution. Modern marketing and communication strategies for university presidents and trustees in the US, and we've got the perfect duo to unpack both strategy and execution. So let's jump right in. So before diving into strategy, let's begin with something foundational. So Dr. Joseph, Montclair has undergone impressive leadership transitions. So from your seat, what does the true alignment between presidents, trustees, and communications look like? And how do you nurture that from, day one?
Yeah, thank you for asking. Alignment between presidents, trustees, and communications leaders is absolutely crucially important, and today more than ever. I think it begins with the communication leader. It's our responsibility to understand the challenges that our leaders are facing, to know how our institutions operate and what their context and business strategies look like, and to be able to give good advice and align our communication strategies with the needs of these leaders. It's not enough to simply say, look at all the views we got on our latest TikTok video. Instead, we have to say, I understand that our goal is to grow in this segment, or our goal is to influence these people to do something for our institution. And then this is what we're choosing to do that, and here's how we know it. In other words, we, the communicators, need to speak the language of our leaders. We need to educate them about what we do. And importantly, we need to spend time with them. Alignment comes from trust. Trust comes from relationships, and relationships come from spending time together.
Right. So now let's, yeah. So maybe there was a network issue at my end. So now let's the stage. In many organizations, communication is seen as a support function, but you advocate for it to be strategic, even at the cabinet level. So why do you believe communication should be considered a strategic function at the highest levels, especially during periods of uncertainty or leadership transition?
Well, let's pretend that you're an archer, and your job is to put the arrow into the bullseye on the target. You're going to step up to the mark. You're going to get ready. You're going to take aim, and then and only then will you release that arrow. Now, imagine what would happen if you simply walked up to the mark, drew your bowstring back, and let the arrow fly without aiming. That's the difference between being strategic and being tactical. If we're tactical, we're really thinking about what are the products that we're creating and how we're going to deliver them. And we haven't taken the time to say, who are we intending to reach? Why are we intending to reach them? And what is the best way to do that? Strategic means understanding options. It means doing research to understand the context and the audience. And it means trying different things and measuring and seeing what happens. When we're strategic, we add a lot more value. So that's the first and most important reason, is that it doesn't waste resources or time. But too often, the work shows up in our offices as, I need a brochure. I want a video. You should create a web page for me. And what I always coach my people to do is to say, we can certainly do that, but first let's understand what you're trying to get done. And we speak in behavioral terms. So you want this web page because you want more inquiries from this segment of people. Is that correct? And then, okay, let's understand that segment. Where do they live online? What are their motivators? What's likely to make them want to engage with our communication material or not? Then and only then, with that thoughtful planning or aiming, like the archer, will we be successful. And this function needs to report directly to a top executive, because skilled communicators do much more than take messages, make them look pretty, and send them out. When we're doing our jobs well, we're strategic advisors and counselors. We bring a perspective that few other leaders on campus have, because we think about all the audiences: the students, the faculty, the staff, the neighbors, the parents, the prospective students, the teachers in the secondary schools who are influencing those students, the news media. The list goes on and on. But we think and understand across those audiences. We also understand the university as an enterprise. We understand how it generates revenue. We understand how to trade risks for benefits. And we can bring those perspectives that, quite frankly, many other leaders can't. If I'm the chief fundraiser, I'm thinking mainly about my alumni and donors. If I'm the human resources vice president, I'm thinking about employees and what they need and what they expect. Very few people in the cabinet can think across all the audiences. We also tend to be people who are curious and knowledgeable. We're drawn to this work because we're communicators. We love to learn about people, politics, culture, history. We understand psychology and how to reach and motivate people emotionally as well as intellectually. That skill set is really valuable for a top leader, because we can be the people who say, well, I think your options are A or B or C. And I think if you did A, the audience would react this way or that other way. If you did B, the outcome or the audience reaction could be like this. And we dish it up for leaders to make informed decisions, because their job, really the job of the trustees and the president, essentially boils down to balancing risk and reward. So we're going to take a risk of spending this money or investing this time or engaging in this particular way. And we need a reward in return for that, some kind of benefit. And every one of those is an investment decision that we can and should be counseling about. It goes way beyond saying, hey, if we make this decision, then the headlines are going to look like this. It needs to be grounded in, here's the options, and this is the likely impact on the business. And then this is how I will carry out my part of it to provide communication planning and support. Too often, our top leaders misunderstand what we do because they see the visible tip of the iceberg. They see the materials we create. And we're very proud, we should be very proud of excellent materials. We should be very proud of the stories that we convince a reporter to write that are positive about our university. We should be proud of high engagement rates on our social media. But below that tip of the iceberg is an enormous amount of value creation that we do through careful research and planning, testing of different alternatives, and development of just the right approach delivered the right way to the right people at the right time. That work is invisible. You know, Shabazz, I know you live in New York, and I'm here too, and my wife and I love to go to Broadway plays. And, you know, when you're watching the play, you see 3 or 4 people on stage maybe, and they're fabulous, right? They're the stars. They're the ones that come out at the end and get all the applause. But behind the curtain is an army of people who are operating lights and building sets and helping design costumes, and they're rehearsing the actors, and they're taking the tickets, and they're promoting the show. When you're sitting in the audience, you don't think about any of that 150 people that you never see and who never come out on stage to take a bow. That's my metaphor for what we do in communications. Our job is to make the stars look good, and we stay behind the curtain by and large. The challenge with that, though, is that our work can be undervalued. And we can have other areas that want to take credit. So our enrollment management people are judged on how many students they bring in, and if they're making their goals, and if those students are the right people who are retained and successful. Our development colleagues are judged on how many alumni came to the event, how many people wrote a check last year, and how many large gifts. That's very important, but the work we do is fundamental behind the scenes work to create the platform for those colleagues to be successful. Yet, because of the way they're measured, they often are the people out on the stage taking the bow while we're standing in the wings. Very proud of them, but the show couldn't happen on Broadway unless you had the 150 people behind the curtain. So that's why that's my answer to why should this be a cabinet function? Because 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when I started in this business, Tanya, it wasn't a cabinet function. It was usually a tactical, service-oriented production organization that reported someplace else, often to the chief fundraising, or in the US, we call that advancement. But savvy presidents and boards have realized over the last 20 or so years that this function of strategic communication and marketing belongs at the table with the other areas, that it's as important as academic leadership, financial leadership, human resources, legal counsel, that it's a full-fledged function that is essential to be done for the success of the institution. So the savviest leaders have taken our organizations out of being buried 3 ranks down and just carrying out orders and elevated them to a seat at the top leadership table. Now, when we're sitting in that seat, we have to learn to speak the language of the people around us and to deliver results that matter to them. They don't really care a whole lot about your engagement rates. They don't care a whole lot about your conversion rates. What they care about is the investment that I'm making in your area driving business goals? Is it contributing to revenue growth? Is it contributing to some other important metric for us like reputations and ranking? And our job is to help them connect the dots and help them not to confuse us with the little bitty tip of the iceberg that's standing out in front of the curtain on the Broadway stage, and help them to understand the entire work that it takes to put the show on.
Right. I think so that's such a powerful reminder for everybody sitting here listening to you. If I could sum up, it is communication isn't just about messaging, it's about trust, alignment, and leadership. So thank you for that, sir. Now, let's expand the lens a bit. Shabazz, you've interacted with a variety of universities across US, across Malaysia, UAE, and I know you've seen institutions adapt in different ways. So, based on your recent conversations with the US institutes, what are the major shifts you are seeing in the US higher ed marketing and enrollment landscape?
Thank you, Tanya. That's a very valid question. So, from my experience and conversation with US organizations, specifically in higher ed, the landscape is evolving rapidly. If I have to give you some of the bullet pointers, the first one is data driven personalization. Institutions are moving towards hyper targeted marketing campaigns to meet the expectations of the students seeking tailored experience. Like Dr. Joseph already told, that when you're going to a Broadway show, you're getting pamphlet where you can see who all are performing, and you can also see who all are behind the scenes. So I guess Dr. Joseph, we can see your name behind the scenes, whenever any communication is going, like who is the orchestra of this particular communication that is being happening. The second is shift to digital first strategies. With the rise of social media, right, short film video contents and digital platforms, universities are focusing on engaging students where they spend most of the time. So if you see the traditional shift, which was happening mostly on emails, text messages, now you can see short form of videos on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts. And with AI coming into picture, now you're having agentic AI bot also sitting on your website, acting as a recruiter, giving you right set of information for the particular student. The third could be focusing on outcomes. Like Dr. Joseph said, now everything is related to ROI, right? Where you are evaluating everything in terms of ROI. So there is a growing emphasis on showcasing outcomes, employability, ROI of education, and underlying success stories to appeal to a value conscious for students and the families. The fourth one could be diverse audience segmentations. Now, many institutions are broadening their reach, which includes non-traditional students, international students with changing dynamics, geopolitical environment as well. So you are changing your communication based on that particular norms as well. We can see a rise in online learners, and we can see there is a shift in international students as well. So if you go through the recent research that has been published by many of the organizations like QS, Times Higher Education, we can see there is a global shift which is happening in terms of international student which are migrating from different locations to US as well. So it is being predicted that after a decade, the US international students are going to decline, or let's say the other geographies are going to catch up, like Canada, if I talk about, and Europe. But there also you can see there is if you see the recent news, there is a lot of geopolitical shift in terms of international student recruitment, be it US, be it Canada, be it Europe, which is again opening up new markets like Middle East, which are promoting themselves as new thought leaders or new hub for education. So it's important that you are diversifying based on your audience segmentation and catching up at the right place. And it's important in that perspective also in terms of retention of the students. You don't want to invest somewhere where the student is coming, taking enrollment, and they are dropping in the second year. So it's important in terms of student retention also. So these are the important, things that I'm seeing in terms of major shifts when you talk about the US higher education landscape.
Well, that's insightful, Shabazz. I think it's clear that staying static is no longer an option for any institute currently. So let's go a bit deeper into leadership dynamics now. Dr. Joseph, When it comes to those high stakes moments like leadership transitions, budget decisions, or public scrutiny, so from your experience, what do presidents and trustees often underestimate about the role of communications in navigating these situations? I'm sure you've already covered a few points in your previous question, but I would just like you to dive deeper into it for our audience.
Right. When the stakes are high, it's vitally important to be managing reputational risk as much as legal risk. And sometimes leaders overvalue what the attorneys are telling them. Like, don't say this, don't do this. It'll pose some legal risk to us. We'll be sued, and so forth. So the first thing I would say is that the leader needs to have counselors who are focused on different kinds of risks. Legal risk is one, but reputational risk is the other. And too often, what we see is that the lawsuit results from when the person who feels victimized feels like they were disrespected. I can think of a story many years ago that one of my teachers told me about a woman who went in for surgery to remove one of her breasts because she had cancer, and the surgeon took the wrong breast off. And afterward, she was asked, well, aren't you going to sue the doctor and the hospital? What a terrible, grave error. And she said, no, because I've known this doctor for a long time, and he made a mistake, and he came, apologized right away, told me what happened, and we all make mistakes. And so having that human touch in these moments is so important, and you're not going to get that from the legal point of view. Generally, they want you to clam up, be very strict, be very disciplined in what you say and don't say, don't accept any responsibility. I think that's the biggest mistake that I see. The other mistake that folks make is to assume that the job of communications is to be the post office. So here is my letter, and I give it to you, and you deliver it to my recipient. And as I've said before, we're way more than that. I counsel many leaders. You mentioned at the start that I've served more than 12 top leaders over my 33-year career. I always tell them your job is two things. Remind everyone of their values. So we're in a difficult moment here, right? Something bad is happening, whatever it may be. We need to step back and say, this is what's important. Our North Star is to make sure everyone's treated fairly. Our North Star is to put the interests of our students ahead of everyone else. Our North Star is to do what's in the best interest of the community. Whatever that is, the top leader needs to articulate the values so that people begin to understand why decisions are made the way they are and what really is at stake here, right? And sometimes in a critical incident like where lives or property are at stake, the value is protecting human life is our number one value, and that's why we're doing this thing in response to whatever occurred. That's the first thing that I tell people is come back to values. The second thing I say is give them hope. Give them hope, because these are dark moments. People are afraid. They need the leader to say, this is tough. Here's what we're doing about it. This won't be easy, but I have confidence that you can do it. And over here, I see a little glimmer of hope. I noticed the mayor of Los Angeles doing this very well during the wildfires that happened last year in Pacific Palisades when hundreds and hundreds of homes were completely destroyed. She stood up and said, this is a tough moment, but we are resilient. Angelenos are resilient, and we're working together. And I'm seeing people step up, the firefighters that are working 20 hours a day, the residents who are taking displaced people into their homes, the people that are providing meals at the shelters. You call people to be their best selves in these moments. Now, if you think that your communications office is simply a post office, you haven't given them the chance to remind you, as the leader, what you're specially called upon to do. I like to say the job of the president of the university is not to make sure the fire trucks go to the right building. It's to make sure that everyone understands what happened, what impact it's having, how we're fixing it, what our values are, and that we will get through this difficult moment if we stick to our values.
Absolutely. So, well, thank you for that. That was really a very relevant example that you used to explain this question. So, Shabazz, building on that, there's a clear appetite for transformation, but implementation is where things get tricky usually. So, what are the top challenges you see university leaderships, particularly presidents and trustees, grappling with when it comes to marketing, communication, or even enrollment strategies?
Yeah, absolutely. So based on my work, I think there are four key challenges, right? That includes first is declining enrollment, addressing demographic shifts, and declining higher school graduates in certain region is the first and foremost challenge. Second is rising expectations of ROI. Like Dr. Joseph said, that when it comes to the leadership, they're seeing the tip of the iceberg, where the first thing that they are seeing is the ROI, which is justifying the value of higher education to prospective students and their families, because students are seeking what is the ROI that I'm going to get if I'm going to get graduate from this particular school. Third is fragmented communication systems. So we have seen lack of unified platform leading to inconsistent messaging and engagement. So we have seen that recruitment team, financial aid team, then the retention team, all three are not speaking the same way, where they can come unanimously and speak in the right manner based on the long-term vision or the positioning of the organization. So it's important to understand that every segment of my enrollment is giving the same value proposition to the particular prospect, whether they are coming asking for the information when they're in a phase of taking the enrollment or even after taking the enrollment. So communication is the key, like Dr. Joseph also said, when the mayor stood up and clearly communicated, during the wildfire that has happened and we are resilient and this is what we're going to do. That's where people resonated with her vision, right? Because tragedy can happen. It's not in our hand, right? Things are going to change, but the the resources that are in our hand, how we are optimally utilizing it and giving the right set of communication is more important. The fourth one that I think is resource constraint, right? Now with the budget cuts happening across the US higher education landscape, right? Resource constraint is a big thing that every organization is looking into. So balancing innovation with limited budget and staff. So that's also very much important, that how you are using the technology so that you're not replacing the humans, but giving them helping hands to reduce the redundant tasks, right? Which can help them to prioritize the things and use the human brain in terms of formulating strategies like what could help in going to a next step. So these are the four key challenges, that in my opinion, any university leaders or leadership, particularly presidents and trustees, are grappling with. And I can see a lot of background changes happening, with Dr. Joseph,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I don't know what's happening, but I'm pretty sure my computer heard me talking about California, so it moved me from New York to California. So
So
bear with me while we
AI,
work out the
A,
background
A,
challenges.
so I
Shabazz,
guess
I
you are
want,
using the AI.
yeah, exactly. And you know, Claude is my friend, but sometimes he makes mistakes. So I want to come back to something you just said to underscore it. The importance of having a consistent message. Uh, I think that is a really key function for the communication team, is to provide enrollment, fundraising, senior leaders, the board, with the core messages. We talk about our brand and our brand narrative. People need to really know what that is. You need to know how to express the value proposition. It's important that we speak with one clear voice, because we'll get better outcomes. So I think that's very wise. And earlier you talked about using the technology and the data that's there to move to a hyper-personalized approach. I could not agree more with what you said. 60 years ago, 50 years ago, 75% of all adult Americans watched one of 3 television news programs at 6 p.m. every night. It was either ABC, CBS, or NBC. Today, we don't have anything like that. People go to hundreds and thousands of sources of information. And back in the day, you could have the idea that one message would reach everyone and would be appropriate for everyone. That simply doesn't work. One size does not fit all. And people want to be acknowledged and seen as individuals. They want brands that feel like they have that customer's interest at heart, that they know the customer. And the fact is, we can do this now. We can totally do it. We have lots of data that we collect, first party. We also have data that we can acquire, and we can really begin to understand our customers in a way that lets us better serve them. And I think that's a key source of competitive advantage, and one that too many higher ed institutions overlook. So yes, on the one hand, we want a consistent brand narrative, but on the other hand, we need to connect with and engage with people at the individual level. And with the right technology and the right mindset, it's entirely possible to do. In fact, there really is no excuse anymore for I send every one of my prospects exactly the same response when they fill out a request for inquiry form. So sorry about the changing background, folks. We're doing our best here in the studio. Please stand by while we. There we go.
I guess it's keeping us engaged as well, and it's keeping audience engaged and wondering what is happening.
Yeah, exactly. We also, Matt, we have the logo is like mirror imaged.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. So, well, bear with us. Hopefully the audio track is coming out just great. And this is the fun of live TV, right, guys?
Yes,
like
absolutely.
No script, no rehearsal, and no refunds.
Right. So let's make this even more real for our audience. So Dr. Brennan, Montclair went through a presidential transition, which can often be a turbulent period, right? So can you walk us through your communication strategy during that transition? What role did your team play in supporting a smooth and confident leadership launch?
Thank you, Tanya. An important question, because everyone who's listening to me will go through and has gone through transitions. In my career, I've gone through 4.5 transitions, and I say half because one of them was I had actually changed jobs in the middle of it. But it's a pivotal moment in the life of the institution, and it requires very careful and thoughtful planning and execution. The chief goal is to assure a smooth transition of power, so with the least amount of disruption for the institution, and to set the new leader up with a strong foundation for their success. When you're planning these transitions, you actually begin before the departing leader has announced, and you have to plan that announcement very carefully. Often, they're leaving because they're going to a better job or they're retiring. It's a voluntary departure. So you want to give them the chance to communicate this in a thoughtful way, to summarize their impact and legacy, and to ensure that key audiences are told at the right time. VIPs, like a major multi-million-dollar donor, need to get something like a phone call that says, hey, Mr. Smith, I just wanted to let you know that in a couple of hours I'll be announcing my retirement. You're such an important part of this institution that I wanted to tell you first before the general public. So you want to manage that carefully and thoughtfully. And as part of that announcement or soon thereafter, the board needs to talk about what's next. Will they name an interim? Will they conduct a search? Will that search have any characteristics like open or confidential or so on? So the first phase is departure. The second phase is the search. And higher education expects processes that let many people's voices be heard. So when you're communicating that, you want to make sure that you're helping the leaders, the trustees who have to run these searches, understand that they need to create a way for input. That can be by having representation on a search and select committee. It can be by having some listening sessions with campus stakeholders to say, what do you think the job of the next president should be? And done well, this pre-search activity helps the whole community understand where they're at in their evolution and what they need to move to. And if that's done well, then the board goes and hires the right leader to help them go from where they're at to the future. Throughout the search, you want to provide a steady stream of information that's appropriate. Now, searches need to preserve confidentiality because people who are applying for jobs already have a job, and it might not be good for them, for their employer to know that they're out looking. So you want to protect the integrity of the search, but you also want to keep your campus informed because quite rightly, they can be a little nervous about this change and they want some reassurance that it's being done well. That's the second phase, managing the search communication. The third phase is introducing and then supporting the new leader as they get onboarded. And in that phase, there's often a reveal moment when the board holds a news conference or a town hall meeting and brings the new person out, and the board chair explains why this person was selected, and that person gets to say a few words and start positioning themselves with their new campus. But the real work comes after that, and that work is to, over the first 30, 60, 90 days, the first 6 months, that new leader needs to very quickly build relationships and begin sizing up the context and the conditions. So you plan all that out well in advance. And you start by sorting out your audiences. Who needs a phone call on the first day? Who could get an email? Which people can be addressed in groups? Who can wait to hear from the new president for a week or a month? And who should be talked to sooner than that? So you're planning it from an audience standpoint. You're also helping the new leader understand the organization and the people and helping them clarify and deliver their messaging. And this is a very delicate dance. It's like dating. They're getting to know, they're building the trust, they're getting the engagement, they're winning the benefit of the doubt so that they can then be successful in achieving the goals that the board has provided. Now, to plan this well, you really need to put multiple areas of the university around the table. Everything from external functions like government relations and fundraising to the internal audiences like faculty, staff, students. You need the areas that are responsible for managing those relationships. But someone has to be a strong leader because every one of those areas all has the same goal, which is I want the new president to spend a lot of time and attention with my area or my audience, because after all, they're assigned to manage that relationship. So a strong leader that has an enterprise-wide view and is savvy about relationships and campus politics has to be able to balance these competing interests. Often you want a vice president or chief of staff to do that work because they are full-time, they understand, but they need the authority of the board. So you typically have a co-chair that is a trustee, or you have the board chair or some other visible leadership of the board so that you can provide the balancing and the control necessary to do this planning well. And then you have to have strong execution. It really helps to have one or two people who are just, the kind of people that are super great with detail and follow through, like a special events planner or an executive assistant. People that excel in those roles are often very organized and responsible folks, and they can then make sure that the plan comes to life and keep everything moving forward. It done well. The onboarding is a springboard for a new leader to make a positive impact much sooner. Done poorly, it can derail them and cause a delayed start, and perhaps even sink a presidency or prevent it from getting everything done that the leader and the board expected to get done. And then finally, I'd like to say a word about pitfalls. New presidents can be vulnerable. They're vulnerable because they don't understand where the landmines are, they don't understand all the dynamics, and there's a lot of competing interests in higher ed, and there will be some that are not interested in helping that president be as successful as possible. They may be vested in keeping the status quo just the way it is. Thank you very much. We don't need a new leader to change anything. So this is, I think, leading the transition is the ideal role for a smart, savvy, strategic communications leader. Because they know, as I said before, we understand the whole enterprise and all the audiences, and we're good at creating strategies and tactics that deliver business outcomes. So, but a risk, I was starting to say, it is a vulnerable time. It's important for institutions to clean up messes before the new leaders come and not require them to burn scarce political capital. So if there's a really problematic area, the departing president or interim president should spend time cleaning up that area. The president's house, if there is one, many campuses have that tradition of the president or chancellor lives on the campus. If that house needs renovations, you need to do it before the person arrives, because you don't want anyone to say, oh, well, look at the new president. They just spent $500,000 with drapes and carpeting and painting to please their own ego. When in fact, that house had been neglected for 25 years and there was leaking roof, right, that needed to be remediated. So clean up your messes and don't make the new person do it. And you'll get them off to a better start. And your communications people should be savvy to that, because we've seen presidents actually lose their jobs. There was an example that happened within the last 20 years where a presidential home was renovated for about $700,000 and the campus rebelled, and that new president took the blame, unfairly in my view, and actually was no longer the president within their first year. It's a very sad story. Utterly preventable, if you ask me.
Well, that's such a great explanation of how communications can shape perceptions and build momentum. So moving forward, Shabazz, let's talk tools now. Strategy needs execution needs the right platforms, right? So how are modern tools like marketing automation or CRM intelligence helping institutions address these challenges more strategically today?
Absolutely. Like we were talking about technology. Technology is there to assist any of the organization in any particular space. So the tool can help or address a lot of things. When I talk about CRM, the first and the core functionality that it will help you is to optimize lead management. That means CRMs will help you to streamline lead nurturing. They will capture the intent of the candidates from wherever they're coming, whether they're coming through your websites, microsites, open houses, or coming through the agents. If these are international students and you have signed up with some common portals, so it will ensure that the data is getting centralized. They're capturing the right set of intent of the candidate. Because even if two candidates, let's say Shabazz and Tanya, are applying for the same program, we might be seeking different value proposition out of it. So it's important to capture the intent of that particular candidate at the first place. So the tools will help you to optimize that. The second is delivering personalized experiences. So like we were talking about, like Dr. Joseph said, you have to clear up the previous mess so that the new president who is coming will have the bandwidth, or let's say the scope, to do some innovation and do rest of the things, rather than putting the mind on the things that are already there in the pipeline. So when it comes to personalized experience, whenever our candidates are inquiring for you, these tools will help you to automate the communication and tailor your communication according to the student's background, its culture, right? It will also ensure that it's aligned with, what the student is seeking out of that particular organization. So if a student is getting the information more on a social media platform, so this tool should be able to give the information on that particular medium itself. And when we were talking about communication, we were also talking about irrespective of whenever the student is getting the information. So all these communication platforms should give the right set of information based on the stage where the candidate is stuck, let's say, in the enrollment process. The third could be, where tool can help is taking data-driven decisions. So data-driven decisions lies in various perspectives. It could be related to the communication, whether your tool is smart enough to analyze what set of communication is working for what segment of student. So if I'm sending a communication to, let's say, some students who are moving from Europe, China, or let's say Southeast Asia nations like India, so are we giving this right set of information based on their cultural inclination, right? The Gen Z that we talk about today are not having that much of patience to go through your website, your brochures, decks. So it's important to have modern engagement tools like, let's say, AI chatbot that can give the answers to them on real-time basis. It could be, on your website, sitting on your landing pages, or even on WhatsApp, right? That can give the right set of information. So data, when it comes to, and similarly, when it comes to the marketing where we are spending a lot of amount, we need to optimize it. So can your CRM tell you what set of decisions you have to take to optimize your marketing campaigns? So data-driven decisions. So like we have discussed in our previous sessions also, that data or the CRM tool should guide as a compass based on the data that you're having, rather than acting as a calculator, right? Where you're just seeing the tip of the iceberg and taking decision based on just ROIs. You should see a longer term impact, like where it's driving you in terms of compass. You should, like Dr. Joseph said, you should know where is your North Star, where you are heading towards it. The next point where the tool can help you is improve scalability. So like we discussed in our previous discussion also, that the tool will help you to give you bandwidth to focus on what should be the strategies, what next you can do, how we can scale in terms of whether brand building, because it's a longer run. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon, if I would say, right? So you have to think, like, if you have to go through a marathon, how you have to take it from phases to phases, right? Are we giving the right set of information? Are we building a brand that existing students are retained, and we are creating success stories from the alumni, so that the word of mouth is there? And even if a candidate has just inquired, and even if they are not taking enrollment in my organization, at least they can come and say, okay, the recruiter Shabaz or the recruiter Tanya gave me a better perspective of how I can enhance my career. So even if I'm taking admission somewhere else, I can take that as a word of mouth. And whenever I'm going back to my community, I can say, okay, if you want to take recruitment, you can take guidance from XYZ organization, right? They're not selling you the program. Rather, they're guiding you or consulting you what is going to be beneficial for your career and how you'll be contributing back to your, let's say, society. And this is how the tools can help you in terms of empowering your teams and institutions to address these challenges, as well as help you to scale up. So you have to adopt to the technology. If you're not doing it, we have seen instances in past where even the organizations which are 100-year-old are getting shut down because they are unable to cope up with the changing environments. So it's important you use these tools in a manner that they help your organization to scale and give you a better perspective and make you future ready in terms of creating strategies. And it should be a scalable system, that I always say. It should not be a system that is currently addressing your current challenges, but it should be a scalable system that can foresee what are the future challenges that might come based on the changing dynamics in terms of technology, in terms of student recruitment, and can help you so that you don't have to change the technology, let's say, after every third year. Rather, you can adopt to the technology and scale within the technology that you have adopted. So this is my opinion in terms of how modern tools like marketing automations, or let's say the CRMs or the AI coming to picture, can help institutions to address these challenges in a more strategic manager, strategic manager manage today.
Very well
I
put,
think
Shabaz.
I think that's right. That if I could just respond, I just loved what you said, Shabaz. It's right. The way that the system should be a compass, not a calculator,
Not really.
very, very vital. We need data to make us better. Scalability, and I loved that your idea that it should provide value to the prospective student, because people want to be served, not sold. And they want to be involved, not told. And a system that gathers info, why are you here, Tanya? Why are you here, Shabazz? What are you looking to achieve? What are you worried about? And then intelligently gives them back answers to those questions and needs, is going to really help serve them rather than sell them. And I think that's the key to success. And letting the tool do jobs that were formerly done by humans, you also talked about creating the time and space for humans to do the really complex, strategic, and relationship-based work that machines just can't do. So I'm personally very excited about where data and technology is taking our field. And I'm with you. I think there's just no excuse anymore for not using these tools. They're widely available. They come at all price points, and you don't need a PhD in electrical engineering to use them. So I think I would say to all of my peers that this is our future, friends. And the sooner we can make smart use of what's out there with our data and our technology, the more competitive advantage we will gain in a very competitive global market for higher education.
Well, I couldn't agree more with both of you. It's not about replacing people. It's about empowering them with data and scale. So great perspective, Shabazz. Now, I see a very interesting question in our Q&A box, and I just can't wait till end to pick it up. So I would like Dr. Joseph to address it. I'll just read out the question for you. So Jim Hannes says, does your team develop a strategic and creative plan for your divisional leaders that they review and sign off on prior to the tactical items being created? So, Dr. Joseph?
So first of all, hello, Jim. I'm really glad you're here. And I love that question. What you're asking is there a strategic plan that gets reviewed and approved by divisional leaders prior to any tactical engagement? Yes, actually, that is a method that we're using more and more. We have a structured intake process to get at things that I talked about earlier. Why are you doing it? What is the desired behavioral outcome? And what do you think the risks and benefits are, and so on and so forth. And then we develop a strategy that looks at messaging, that looks at tactical delivery modes, that looks at what is the mix across paid and social, earned news coverage, and owned media. But we need to confirm first that our understanding of the purpose and the audience and the risk-benefit proposition is correct before we jump to tactics. And Jim, I think you know from your vast experience as a creative director that so often the requests come into our shop as, I need A. It's almost like we're operating a pizza shop and someone walks in and says, I want a large with pepperoni and mushrooms. When what the conversation we really want to have is, are you hungry? And what's your diet look like? And what nutrients do you need to make you healthy, right? And what do you enjoy eating? And right, rather than just, so many of our organizations want to make that awesome pizza, and we're very good at it. Sorry, it's getting to be like lunchtime here in New York, so I'm thinking about pizza. But love the question. Strategy before tactics always.
Well, thank you so much for answering that, sir. I can see another very interesting question. So I would like Shabazz's and yours, both of yours take here. So I'll just read it again. What have you seen as one of the greatest challenges for student enrollment and retention? Awareness, financial, quality of expectations of course, content, and instruction, etc. What programs, communication efforts have you made to address these different hurdles? So
I'll go first. In terms of greatest challenges for student enrollment and retention, what we have seen, I think it arises with lack of clarity of thought and communication, right? So we have seen that whenever you are recruiting a student, you're sending a communication, but when they are getting onboarded on your campus, the things that you have promised are not looking, what they have been told. So it's important that the clarity of communication is important when you are transitioning even the student during the recruitment cycle. So we have often seen that the recruitment team and the financials team are not working hand in hand, right? So whenever a candidate is coming, they're asking, what type of scholarship, what is going to be the value proposition. We are just telling them, okay, you can mark an email to this particular email ID. It should be a smooth transition within your organization as well, so that the next person who's going to be attending that particular student should be aware about what was the communication, what is the student that he or she is seeking, well, in terms of value proposition, what exactly is the query of the candidate, so they can build up on that particular conversation that you previously had, rather than giving a bad experience to the student. So this, I think, is the first challenge that any organization faces in terms of student enrollment and retention, because this is where the student give up and loses interest, that I'm not getting a clear cut of information. I have to struggle from one booth to another booth to understand the recruitment process, is making it more complex for a candidate, whereas the candidate is seeking a correct set of information in a simplified format. Sometimes we say that the simplest of the communication is the best of the communication. We have seen that in terms of technology, right? We can see it, the Apple doing it from decades, right? They don't do a lot of innovation, but whatever they are communicating is very simple and to the point. So that is one thing that is there, right? In terms of the second part of question, like awareness, financial quality of expectations, course content in instruction, etc., I'd probably ask Dr. Joseph to pick that part of the question and answer that.
Thank you, Shabazz, and I very much agree with what you said. The brand is a promise, and if we're out there promising things and then the student gets to campus and the experience doesn't match the brand, we have done ourselves a lot of damage. We've created a credibility gap. So the answer to that, as you quite rightly said, is consistency, teamwork, creating the experience that we're promising, and promising the experience we actually create, so that it's in alignment. On the other question about product and pricing and so on, I am very concerned about what I'm seeing happen in higher ed right now, in which institutions are engaging in price wars with each other. Families and students have learned that they should walk into institution A with the offer they got from institution B and say, can you meet this price, and so on and so forth. If we go too far down the road of price cutting just to make the numbers, what's going to happen is we will erode the revenue coming in at the top, and therefore we can't deliver the quality. And without the quality, we can't justify the price, and it becomes a death spiral. And at the bottom of that loop, you have undifferentiated, commoditized institutions that are essentially only competing on price. Everybody loses. Everybody loses. The answer is not to compete on price, but to justify your price by delivering quality and making sure that your prospects see the quality and perceive it. So we should be saying, well, yes, my competitor 12 miles away did give you a slightly different price, but you're not getting the same thing. And here on our campus, you're getting this, and you're getting that, and you're getting the other thing. So you have to make the right decision for you, but this is very important, what you're going to do with the next 4 years of your life and what that will open up to you as your entire future. So really think about what you're getting in return for what we're asking. And this is a challenge because there's so much pressure to make the numbers on our admissions teams that I think leaders need to be able to create space for them to say, we're not going to go deeply into price discounting. And if that means we have to go through some lean years, then we're going to go through it, because the goal here is to maintain our position and to focus on our value proposition, not our affordability proposition.
Well, thank you so much for answering that question. I hope Jim got his answer. And I can go on and on for hours with this conversation, but respecting both our speakers' time, I would like to conclude here. So thank you so much, Dr. Joseph and Shabazz, for such a rich, forward-looking conversation, from the importance of aligning leadership with communication strategies to evolving the role of marketing in driving enrollment outcomes, and to how modern tools and data are reshaping how universities engage with students. Today's discussion was full of practical insights and strategic direction. I'm sure our audience have already taken their notes and they'll be definitely referring to them. So before we wrap up, I'd like to leave our audience with one final takeaway from each of you. So starting with Dr. Joseph, what's the one message you'd want every institution leader listening today to walk away with?
Put the strategic horse in front of the tactical cart every time. It always has to be ready, aim, fire. That would be my number one. Don't start with tactics. Always start with strategies.
Well, thank you so much, sir. Shabazz, your turn. What's the one key idea you hope sticks with our audience today?
Great. So if there's one key idea I hope resonates with everyone, it's this: that personalization and agility are no longer optional. They are the cornerstone of effective marketing, communication, and enrollment strategies. So that's one thought that I think one should go after this session. Like there is something they can put your brains on, and probably you can think what could be the ones that are more important for your organization.
Thank you so much, Shabazz. I just want to say that I absolutely love this conversation, and I personally, coming from a marketing team, I can resonate to a lot of things that Sir just addressed today. So thank you so much for that. To our audience, we hope you leave today with a renewed sense of possibility for what enrollments and admissions and marketing and communications can look like when we plan proactively and think collaboratively. It is a recorded session, and the recording will be soon shared with you in our next email. So thank you for joining us today. Your engagement is what makes Education Circuit by Meritto a valuable experience. We hope you found this session as enriching as we have. We look forward to seeing you in our upcoming editions as well. So until next time, stay inspired, stay strategic, and keep putting students at the center. Have a great day.